Hi, everybody. How are you? I'm here today to talk to you about gendering and give you some information on my self reflective essay. So let's get started. What is communication? Communication is essential to gender specific communication when our gender or gender influences the relationship, thus creating gender communication. General communication and gender communication are the center of our humanity. And what we know is people do not acquire sex as it's assigned at birth, which makes it innate. The chromosome traits are typically XX for male and XY for female. There is also the exception for intersex chromosomes. Traditional gender roles in America are full of stereotypes. So here is a picture with an army officer and a Barbie. So I'm assuming that's Ken and that's Barbie. And he's basically telling her, soldier, we are gender stereotypes. And she's saying, sir, yes, sir. So I use that image because usually within the social role theory, they're men, they go back to traditional old school theories. Men are head of household, and women are essentially the head of the support system because women are taking care of the duties while men are away working. They're breadwinners and things of that nature. And that's how it used to be. It certainly has evolved in the current day, but in that time, that was usually the differences between the roles. I also associate the social role theory. It reminds me of different stereotypes within the sitcoms back in the olden days. I used between maybe the 1950s and the 1980s. I like a lot of old sitcoms. So here, that's Lucy and Ricky from the famous show I Love Lucy, which was definitely full of stereotypes and between the gender roles. But Lucy was she was not typical actually. She went against Ricky and normally got herself in trouble a lot. So I actually did love that show as well. It brings back good memories. Um, some other shows where I was not pretty much, interested. I did like the shows, however, I did not align with the characters in the shows, such as the women. You have All in the Family, and you have Mama's House. All in the Family was very racial. It was very stereotypical. It was misogynistic. So Archie Bunker, he definitely did not respect Edith. They did have a strong love relationship, but it was full of, you know, cynical humor. And she was, he always called her dingbat because she was not witty and things of that nature. It was definitely a hilarious show. However, I would not aspire to be Edith Bunker. Mama's House, uh, Mama, she definitely was outspoken. But I forget the daughter's name, but she was a ditz, and she was married to the husband. He wasn't that bright either. But it definitely brings back, it's not something that I would like to align myself with. What I do align myself with are roles that, are within, my apologies, roles that, are aligned with the Jeffersons and with Good Times. You have women of strength, women of honor. They're very opinionated, outspoken. They're just women against the time. It's something that wasn't seen at that period. Women were taught to be, silent and to be, of course, submissive, but in a way where it demeanored their character. And the women on Jefferson and Good Times, they went against the grain. So that show was kind of ahead of its time with identifying and elevating women, which was not likely at that time, especially in an African American role where African Americans were typically portrayed as less than. We were oppressed and, we didn't have means. very poor, not bright, didn't have any drive. That's typically what the media's driven goals were at that time. So to have essentially the Jeffersons, where they're a married couple and they're making their way and they're very wealthy and they're giving back to their community. Yes, they were very opinionated, but that was the humor of the show. But so we have the Jeffersons. Their theme song is "Moving On Up" to a East Side apartment, in the sky. So that's basically showing that their growth and their elevation, and that's not something that was possible for many African American at that time, or even portrayed in the media light. So they were a role of honor to look at them because they were certainly different at that time. They had a maid. They kept it within the culture. They employed a maid, and she definitely talked back a lot. She was not the typical woman of that time either, but that definitely those components, propelled the show. And then we have Good Times, where they were of less wealth. They directly opposed the Jeffersons, but you still have the women of honor. The life lessons in that show were very valuable. In fact, this show still comes on. Both of the shows still come on. They have very great lessons to learn. So for me, when I was a child, my mother was not around. I lost her at a young age. And so I would look at those shows and kind of see how family cohabitated in a healthy way. Also, they had the fathers in the lives, and it was a complete home where usually you would see a show that was a broken home. It was very violent, or it didn't hold African Americans in a good light. So furthermore, to put women in a good light, that's awesome. I did strongly identify with those shows, and I still watch them to this day. And again, you can still learn a lot of lessons from those shows because they were so influential and ahead of their time. So, also within the social role theory, there's typically I have the two pictures here of the baby shower and the toys, because with the baby shower, what most people typically tend to do is they'll hold, maybe a birth reveal party, and then they'll have a baby shower, and they're getting all worked up because they're so fascinated about the joys of what the possibility of the gender can be. So when you have the gender reveal, that's when you're gonna play particular games to have the attendees try to guess your baby's gender, and then so we get all wrapped up in the pink and the blue, the pink for the girls and the blue for the boys, just to those are the general the color schemes of basically the traditional color schemes of what used to symbolize whether you're a boy or a girl. um, Also, when I had my baby, hospitals, they don't even ask you. So I could see how it could be offensive if you're someone who do not identify, or you don't want your child labeled. And those means, I can certainly understand the frustration or the irritability of that. However, I was totally excited. I have two girls, and so by the time for each birth, I would have a pink hat on my baby right after I delivered her. And then, I'd have my own choice of clothes to fit their character. Well, they don't have character at that moment, but the the girl style clothing, and what I think is cute and all of that, I'd have that already picked out. As soon as the doctor cleans the baby off and gives her to me, then I have them put in that particular clothing. But I certainly don't think that pink and blue is just defined for boys or girls. I love all colors, so I put my children in all colors. I don't think it's kind of silly to say, oh, a girl can't wear blue, and a boy can't wear pink. In fact, a lot of people in my culture, they do wear pink. I do see a lot of men actually in all cultures starting to become um, familiarized with the different colors and being outspoken, and just wearing whatever style of clothing or color that they like as a badge of honor. It's more so about your confidence, and if you can pull it off, and or if it doesn't necessarily mean that you know it defines, your sexuality. I mean, that's so silly. That's such an old way of thinking. It's more than that. But if that is why you wear it, that's totally your prerogative. I know that pink is also a form of breast cancer, so we always see a lot of men wearing uh, pink during those months. But men wear those colors in general. It's not something outside of the norm anymore, as it used to be in maybe the 50s or the 60s. I could see that at that time they were not fully open and accepting of just anything. It was still, very fresh. I also have the picture of the toys. I did read that there was a study that was conducted to see how children, how they conform to clothing or to toys. And it was stated that if you gave, let's say a boy, uh, put them in maybe like a universal style clothing or even something that's more girl related, they were more they were more they their mood changed. They decided to release a different character. They were more accepting to play with like different toys that would typically be labeled for just boys, but because they were in a different style of clothing that was maybe universal or gender specific towards the girl, then they felt more free to be themselves. So maybe vice versa. Um, so yeah, we definitely also conform to social role theories in those ways, with trying to identify the baby's gender, as well as choosing gender specific clothing, gender specific toys. It's kind of, I see a lot of people say that it takes the right away from the child and how they express themselves or identify with themselves. I can understand that. However, I don't see it that way. Now, if your child is outspoken and they say something against what you're doing, then I, I maybe would fall more in line. But, from birth, um, they're just being created. So their opinions are forming, and it's about the parenting and what you put into your child that, will help you get further within that mindset of, you know, however they, feel free. I let my children, I have a 2-year-old almost, but I have an 8-year-old, and she's becoming more outspoken now. She will tell me, Mommy, I don't like that clothing. I'm not, she's her own character. In fact, she doesn't even really like pink anymore, which is kind of shocking because maybe that I pushed it on her, but she grew into her own decision and she said she doesn't prefer that color. In fact, my husband, he wants to put our child, our smaller daughter in purple. He wanted to be neutral. He didn't want her to be like a pinkish girl. I guess it's considered to be girly or things of that nature. So, you know, everybody, every family, you have to do what's right for you, what you feel is the best move, um, to push that agenda along to where it's you know kind of extinct in a way that people feel that certain colors or toys or things of that nature ties you to a specific gender role rather than allowing those children to become free and form their own opinions. Okay, so that definitely wraps up everything, all of my pointers. Um, I enjoyed speaking with you guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed listening to some parts of my essay. I hope you guys I wish you guys a wonderful night, and I wish you the best in all of your successes. Thank you. Have a good night.